Once upon a time, in a quiet valley, hidden far away, there lived a fairy who could never sleep. Its wings glowed softly in the moonlight, but her eyes carried the weight of endless nights. Why do dreams visit everyone, but not me? She often this, sitting on the highest branch of an old tree. Beneath her, the river whispered lullabies. Owls sang their midnight songs. Even the leaves seemed to sleep in the arms of the wind. The world was beautiful, yes, but when beauty is seen through tired eyes, it becomes a heavy crown. One night, she looked at the moon. Its glow was gentle, like a hand stretched across the sky. And for the first time, she whispered not a question, but a prayer. Ya Allah, give peace to this restless heart. The words floated into the night, carried away by the wind. And though sleep did not come, her heart felt lighter, as if a feather had touched glass, as if peace had begun to follow her from far away. And inside, but what she didn't know was that not far away, another soul was awake. Someone who also longed for peace. Someone who also could not sleep. And soon their paths would meet. The night stretched quietly across the valley. The sleepless fairy drifted gently through the forest, her wings glowing like faint starlight. She thought she was alone, but hidden among the trees, someone else was awake too. A child sat near the edge of a stream, hugging her knees, watching the ripples move like silver threads. Her eyes were wide open, tired but restless. I can't sleep either. Fairy froze mid-air, her heart skipped like a startled bird. For the first time in forever, she had heard another sleepless soul. She landed softly on a branch above the stream, her voice trembling like the wind through leaves. You're awake too? Chromium looked up, startled at first, then softened, seeing the fairy's gentle glow. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. Yes, she whispered back, her voice low but clear. The dreams never come, no matter how hard I try. The fairy's heart ached. She knew the weight of those words, the heaviness of nights without rest. She fluttered down closer, her light reflecting in the child's weary eyes. Maybe we can keep each other company tonight. Stream whispered softly beside them. The forest grew still, listening to this fragile bond begin. Two sleepless souls finding each other under the same moon. And the first time the fairy's loneliness began to fade, and the child no longer felt alone in her wakefulness. It was the beginning of something gentle, something healing, something that would carry them both into peace. The valley was hushed beneath the silver sky. The sleepless fairy drifted above the treetops, her wings glowing like pale starlight. Every leaf glistened with dew, every branch swayed with gentle ease, yet her heart remained heavy with wakefulness. Tonight felt different. The air carried a whisper she had never heard before, a tender note hidden in the night's quiet song. She followed the sound, wings brushing softly through the air until she reached a stream that curved through the forest like a silver ribbon. And there, by the edge of the water, sat a child. Statewide, the child's knees were pulled to her chest, her chin rested on her arms, her eyes, wide and restless, followed the ripples dancing across the stream. "I can't sleep either." The fairy froze mid-air. Her heart skipped like a startled bird. She wasn't the only one awake. Someone else, someone human, carried the same weight of sleepless nights. For a long moment, the fairy just watched her. The child's small shoulders trembled with the cold night air, but her face carried a softness and innocence wrapped in quiet sorrow. Gathering her courage, the fairy landed gently on a branch just above the stream. Her glow reflected on the water's surface, painting tiny stars over the ripples. You're awake too?" The child's head lifted quickly. Her eyes widened at the sight of the glowing figure. Fear flickered for a heartbeat, then faded as she saw the fairy's gentle shimmer. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Yes," she whispered back. Her voice was soft, like a leaf brushing the wind. "The dreams never come, no matter how hard I try. This desire was meant, once that." The fairy's chest tightened. The words pierced her heart like a mirror reflecting her own pain. She knew those nights. She knew the endless waiting. She knew the ache. "I know," she said gently. "I've been waiting for dreams too, but they never arrive." The child's eyes shimmered with surprise, then softened with understanding. Two souls, different worlds, yet bound by the same restlessness. The fairy fluttered down from the branch, her light reflecting in the child's weary eyes. "Maybe," she whispered, her voice trembling with hope, "maybe we can keep each other company tonight." The child's lips curved into a fuller smile, small but real. She nodded slowly, hugging her knees tighter, as if protecting the fragile warmth inside her heart. They sat together by the stream, the fairy hovering gently, the child resting on the earth. Between them stretched the music of flowing water and the silence of two hearts finally understood. "What keeps you awake?" the fairy asked, her voice a tender hum. The child hesitated, eyes falling to the water. "I don't know," she murmured. "Sometimes it's the darkness, sometimes it's my thoughts, sometimes it's nothing at all." The fairy's wings folded close, her glow dimming gently, as if to listen more deeply. "I understand," she said softly. "For me, it feels like the night is endless, like my eyes will never close, no matter how tired I am." The child looked at her, truly looked. And for the first time, she didn't feel strange. She didn't feel broken, because here was someone who carried the same burden. Even so, the stream whispered around them, carrying their silence, carrying their confessions. The forest held its breath, as if honoring their honesty. Slowly, the fairy stretched out her tiny hand, glowing faintly like a star. Then let's not be alone anymore. The child hesitated only a moment before lifting her small hand, placing it gently beneath the fairy's glow. And though no dream touched them yet, peace began to bloom quietly between their palms. Two sleepless souls under one moon, no longer strangers to the night, and for the first time loneliness began to fade. The fairy smiled, her light growing warmer, and the child leaned against the soft grass, her body relaxing for the first time in many nights. Sleep did not come yet, but peace had finally found its way to them both. This was only the beginning. The night had many more whispers to share. The moon had risen higher now. Its silver light touched every branch, every ripple of the stream, every quiet breath between the fairy and the child. They sat in silence for a while, not needing words. The stillness itself felt like a gift, a gentle blanket wrapping around their tired hearts. But then, softly, the child spoke. "Do you ever make wishes?" The fairy tilted her head, wings shimmering faintly. Her voice was tender when she answered. "I used to," she admitted. "Every night I wished for dreams, but after so many sleepless nights, I stopped asking." The child hugged her knees tighter, her eyes fixed on the water. "I still make wishes," she murmured, "but they never come true. Sometimes I wish just to feel safe, close my eyes." The fairy's heart ached. The words were simple, yet heavy, carrying the weight of lonely nights. She fluttered closer, her glow brushing against the child's shoulder like warm starlight. "Maybe tonight we can try together," she whispered. "Not for dreams, not for sleep, but for peace." Looked up, surprised. "Peace?" she asked softly. The fairy nodded slowly. Her eyes glimmered, carrying the quiet strength of countless nights endured. "Yes," she said, "peace doesn't always come in sleep. Sometimes it comes in moments like this." Cannot rippled gently as if agreeing. The forest exhaled, releasing its hush into the cool air. Together they closed their eyes, not in slumber, but in stillness. And together they made a silent wish. "Ya Allah, give us calm hearts tonight." The words weren't shouted, not even spoken loud enough for the trees. They were only whispers carried by faith into the night sky. And though no miracle came rushing down, something gentle stirred within them both. A warmth, a lightness, a small reminder that peace often blooms quietly. The fairy opened her eyes first, smiling softly as she looked at the child. "See, even wishing together feels lighter than wishing alone." The child nodded, her lips curving into a real smile this time, small but full of meaning. "It does," she whispered. "It really does." At Metabillions, the stars twinkled as if listening. The water sang a little softer, carrying their wish downstream. For the first time, the night didn't feel endless. For the first time, they didn't feel alone. And in that moment, peace began to feel possible. They only needed each other's company, and that was enough. Deepened, yet neither the fairy nor the child felt heavy with sleep. Instead, their hearts carried a new spark, something warmer than before. The fairy tilted her head, her wings shimmering faintly in the moonlight. "Do you want to see something?" The child's tired eyes lit up with curiosity. She nodded slowly. "Yes, please." The fairy fluttered gently to the ground, her glow casting little circles of light on the grass. She reached out her tiny hand. "Come with me." The child hesitated for only a moment before placing her small hand in the fairy's. Her heart skipped, but in a comforting way. Together, they began to walk along a narrow path winding away from the stream. The forest shifted around them as if guiding their steps. The leaves whispered like gentle lullabies. The stars seemed to stretch lower, following them. After a while, the child noticed something strange. The trees grew taller, the air softer. A fragrance filled the path, sweet like blooming jasmine. Her breath caught. "Where are we going?" The fairy only smiled, her eyes glowing softly. "Bachelor." "To a place only the sleepless can see." Soon the path opened into a hidden garden bathed in silver light. Heartbreaking flowers glowed faintly, their petals shimmering with dew. Tiny fireflies drifted lazily in the air, as though the stars had fallen to earth. The child gasped, her voice trembling with awe.
"It's beautiful."
The fairy's wings glowed brighter, proud of her secret haven.
"This garden doesn't exist for those who sleep soundly. It's a gift for us, for the ones who wander through the night."
Clickable, the child walked deeper into the garden, brushing her fingers across petals that shimmered like soft lanterns. Each flower seemed to hum with a quiet music, a melody that wrapped gently around her heart. She didn't feel the sting of tiredness. She felt wonder.
"It feels alive, like it's listening."
The fairy nodded, her voice hushed but warm.
"Because it is. This garden listens to the quiet hearts of the sleepless, and it gives them comfort."
The child knelt beside a glowing white flower, her reflection shimmering in the dewdrops. She something, a small prayer only the night could hear.
"Thank you for letting me see this."
The flower seemed to glow brighter in response, as if acknowledging her words. Side by side, the fairy and the child wandered deeper into the silver garden. And with every step, the weight of their sleeplessness grew lighter, replaced by wonder, by peace, by quiet companionship.
The night no longer felt empty. It felt full of promise.
The garden shimmered beneath the moonlight, every flower breathing with a quiet glow. The child wandered slowly, her fingers brushing petals that felt like soft silk against her skin. The fairy stayed close, her wings humming with a gentle rhythm, a song only the night could hear. "This place holds more than flowers," she whispered, eyes lifted toward the endless sky. The child followed her gaze, heart beating quietly in her chest. What else does it hold? The fairy smiled faintly, her glow trembling like candlelight. Sometimes, when the night listens, the stars send us gifts. As if the heavens had been waiting, a streak of light suddenly tore across the velvet sky. The child gasped, her breath catching in wonder. A shooting star! But this was no ordinary star. Instead of vanishing, it grew brighter, closer, until it drifted gently down into the garden. The flowers leaned toward it, their glow softening as if bowing in reverence. The star touched the earth between the fairy and the child, glowing like a silver flame cradled in the grass. The child's eyes widened, reflecting the light. "It's alive." Larry knelt, her voice hushed with awe. "It's called a starfall. They only come for those who cannot sleep, to bring them comfort." The star shimmered, its glow pulsing like a heartbeat. And then, slowly, it unfolded. Inside the light, a tiny silver feather appeared, soft and delicate as breath. The child reached out, trembling, but stopped halfway. "Can I touch it?" The fairy nodded gently, her wings fluttering. "It chose you." Careful fingers, the child lifted the feather from the star's light. Warmth spread through her palm, flowing into her chest like a soft embrace. Her tiredness, her restlessness, it didn't vanish, but it softened. The weight grew lighter. "Wait our mated check, Nides, eyes." "Feel," she whispered, holding the feather close to her heart. The fairy's eyes softened, shining with quiet pride. Every sleepless one carries a starfall feather. It reminds them they are not alone. The star's glow slowly dimmed, fading back into the night sky, as if it had completed its purpose. The garden returned to its silver stillness. Yet something had changed. The child held her feather tightly, a fragile smile on her lips. "Maybe tonight won't be so hard anymore." The fairy brushed her tiny hand against the child's, her voice tender. "No night is ever hard when it's shared." And as they stood together beneath the sky, the stars above seemed to lean closer, listening, blessing, watching over the two sleepless souls who had found each other. And the night carried them deeper into its embrace. The night deepened, wrapping the garden in a velvety hush. The child sat quietly on the grass, her fingers curled protectively around the glowing feather. And this is letting feet. The fairy perched beside her, wings folded gently, eyes shimmering with an ancient knowing. "Do you feel it?" The child nodded slowly, pressing the feather to her chest. "It's warm, like it's alive." The fairy smiled faintly, her glow brightening for a heartbeat before softening again. "That warmth is its secret. Each starfall feather carries a memory, a comfort woven by the stars themselves." The child blinked, her voice hushed with wonder. A memory? The fairy nodded, leaning closer as though sharing something sacred. Yes, close your eyes and listen. The child closed her weary eyes, holding the feather carefully in her hands. At first there was only silence, and then, like a soft song carried on the breeze, she heard it. Child lullaby. Notes drifting gently, wrapping around her heart as if someone long ago had sung it just for her. Her breath trembled and tears slipped quietly down her cheeks. I know this song. The fairy tilted her head, voice tender. You've heard it before? The child nodded, clutching the feather closer. When I was small, my mother sang it to me, before the nights grew heavy. Gouter, his glow softened, her heart stirring with quiet ache. That is the feather's gift. It doesn't invent comfort. It returns the comfort you once knew. The child's tears glistened like stars against her cheeks, yet her smile was fragile, glowing through them. It's like I'm not lost anymore. The fairy reached out, brushing her tiny hand against the child's trembling fingers. You were never lost. The stars only remind you of the path home. Silence lingered, gentle and healing, as the garden swayed with the night breeze. The child kept the feather close, its glow steady, like a heartbeat she could trust. For the first time, sleep didn't feel so far away. The fairy closed her eyes too, resting beside her. Two sleepless souls holding on to a secret the stars had whispered into their hands. Rotation's garden's glow slowly faded behind them as they walked deeper into the night. The feather's light guided their steps, soft and steady like a lantern of the heart. They reached a place where the air grew still and the trees leaned close together as if guarding a secret. The child shivered, clutching the feather tighter. Why does it feel so quiet here? The fairy's wings trembled faintly. Because this is the hollow of echoes, she whispered. Here, the night repeats whatever we carry inside. The child frowned. The later she heard it. Why am I always afraid? Her eyes widened. It was her own voice, but softer, lonelier, echoing through the dark. She stumbled back, heart racing. That was me, but I didn't say it. The fairy nodded gently, her glow dim with understanding. The hollow doesn't lie. It only returns what you've hidden inside. Hiba, Abbas. The child's chest ached as another echo drifted through the trees. I just want to be held. Tears blurred her eyes. She hugged herself tightly, as though trying to quiet the voices. Meta. The fairy reached out, her small hand glowing against the child's trembling arm. Don't be afraid of the echoes, she murmured. They cannot hurt you. They only show you the truth you try to hide. The Meta. Oz looked at her through tears. But what if the truth is too heavy? The fairy's eyes glimmered, deep and steady. Then you don't carry it alone anymore. The silence stretched until suddenly a different echo filled the hollow. You are not alone. The child froze. That voice, it wasn't hers. She turned to the fairy wide-eyed. Was that you? The fairy smiled faintly, lowering her gaze. Perhaps the hollow wished for you to hear what I could not say aloud. The child's tears spilled freely now, but this time they weren't only from pain. There was a warmth beneath them, a fragile hope echoing back in the quiet. Not alone. Not anymore. The hollow grew calm again. The feather glowed brighter, as though it too had heard the truth and chosen to keep it safe. For the first time, the child didn't fear her own heart. For the first time, her voice, her truth, didn't feel so heavy. The hollow had given her a gift, the courage to let someone else hold her echoes. After the echoes faded, the night carried them further down the forest path. The child's steps felt lighter now, though her eyes still glistened with the memory of tears. Beside her, the fairy's glow shimmered softly, steady, protective, kind. Soon they reached a clearing, quiet and untouched. The grass swayed gently as if breathing in time with the stars above. In the very center, a single lantern floated in the air, suspended with no string, no holder, just light. Whispering, "What is that?" the child whispered, her voice hushed with awe. The fairy tilted her head, eyes wide with recognition. "That is the lantern of stillness," she murmured. "It glows for those who cannot rest. It listens to the silence we are too afraid to face." The child stepped closer, her heart beating faster. The lantern's light was neither warm nor cold. It was balanced, like the calm between breaths. As she gazed into it, she felt the noise in her thoughts begin to quiet, little by little. "It's peaceful." The fairy nodded gently. "Peace doesn't always mean sleep," she said softly. "Sometimes it means simply sitting with the night and letting it hold you." The child lowered herself to the grass, sitting cross-legged beneath the lantern's glow. Her breathing slowed, her shoulders dropped, and for the first time in so long, she wasn't fighting her sleeplessness. She closed her eyes, and the forest around her seemed to hush in response. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. The fairy tilted her head, listening. "It's the sound of nothing." But it wasn't empty. It was full of stillness, full of quiet, full of a gentle truth that didn't need words. Her wings slowing until she too sat in the glow, folding her tiny arms across her knees. Her eyes softened, her glow dimming just enough to match the lantern's rhythm. "Do you feel it?" she asked. "The night isn't always here to haunt us. Sometimes it simply waits for us to listen." The child exhaled slowly, years of tiredness with her chest loosened, her hands unclenched. The weight she carried felt lighter. I think I could stay here forever. The fairy smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the lantern's glow. Then let this place remind you, she said, that even in sleepless nights, stillness can be its own kind of rest. The lantern pulsed once, gently, as though blessing their presence. The forest leaned closer, wrapping them in quiet comfort. And there, beneath the lantern of stillness, child and fairy found a peace that wasn't bound to dreams, but to the heart itself. For the first time, sleeplessness felt like a sanctuary, not a burden. The clearing faded behind them, as child and fairy walked deeper into the forest. The air grew cooler, the silence heavier. Then they heard it, a gentle sound like whispers wrapped in water. Heighten them stretched a wide river, its surface glowing faintly with silver light. But it wasn't an ordinary river. Inside the water floated shapes, tiny sparks like fragments of dreams. "What is this place?" the child asked, her voice trembling with awe. The fairy's glow brightened as she hovered over the water. "This," she whispered, "is the river of forgotten dreams. Every dream ever abandoned, every wish never spoken, every hope left behind flows here." The child knelt by to the glowing current. She saw tiny scenes drifting past, images of children laughing, songs unfinished, prayers whispered but never heard. "They're beautiful," she breathed. The fairy nodded gently, though her eyes shimmered with sadness. "Yes, but they are also heavy. Forgotten dreams have their own kind of sorrow. They long to be remembered, even if only for a moment." The child reached out, her fingers brushing the surface. A spark rose up, glowing brighter, then dissolved into the air like mist. "Did I set it free?" she asked quietly. The fairy's smile was tender. "Yes. Sometimes all a forgotten dream needs is for someone to see it again." Menopause 1.0, a sister sat together by the riverbank, watching dreams drift past like stars across the water. The current sang a quiet song, neither happy nor sad, but something in between, a song of letting go. "I had dreams too," the child whispered, "but I was too tired to hold them." The fairy turned, her glow wrapping around the child like a soft embrace. "Then let this river carry what you cannot. You don't need to hold everything alone." Menopause. The child closed her eyes, breathing slowly. She imagined her burdens, her fears, her sleepless nights drifting into the current, and as she let them go, the river shimmered brighter, as though thanking her. For the first time, her chest felt light. The fairy whispered softly into the night air, her words carried by the flowing current. peace comes when we no longer cling to what has already drifted away. Menopause 1.0. And so, under the starlit sky, with the river of forgotten dreams beside them, the sleepless fairy and the weary child found a moment of release. Not sleep, but a gentler kind of rest. The river's glow slowly faded behind them as they followed a narrow path winding deeper into the night. Each step carried them into softer silence until finally the forest opened into a hidden garden. Menopause 1.0 read standing mild, but what struck the child most was the sound. Not the rustle of leaves, not the hum of insects, but echoes. Gentle voices. Gentle voices. Laughter. Even whispering. Whispers. Drifting on the air as though the garden remembered every soul that ever entered it. Clutched the fairy's glow tightly, her eyes wide. "Where are those voices coming from?" she asked. The fairy hovered gracefully, her wings slow and deliberate. "This is the garden of echoes," she explained. "Every word spoken in sorrow, every laugh shared in joy, every secret whispered to the night lingers here." The listened, and the voices began to form around her. She heard faint giggles of children at play, a song hummed by a mother, a promise spoken under the stars. Stabilize welled gently in her eyes. "It feels like they're still here." The fairy nodded softly, her glow dimming in respect. Echoes remind us that nothing is ever truly lost. Words may fade from memory, but the feelings remain. The night remembers, even when we forget. The child stepped into the garden, brushing her fingers along the petals of glowing flowers. As she touched one, a faint voice bloomed into the air, soft laughter, warm and fleeting. She gasped, covering her mouth. "It's beautiful." Her fairy's wings slowed, her voice a calm murmur. Sometimes what we think is gone lives on in ways we can't always see. Echoes are gentle reminders that love and hope never vanish completely. The child sat down on a patch of grass, surrounded by the glowing blooms. She closed her eyes and listened. Whispers drifted softly around her, like lullabies made of memory. "I could stay here forever," she breathed. The fairy floated close, placing her tiny hand gently over the child's heart. The night will carry your own laughter, your own words, so that others may hear them one day." The garden swayed with unseen music. Petals glowed brighter, as though humming back the love they held. Sacred place of remembrance, the child and the sleepless fairy sat quietly, hearts eased by the voices of those who came before. Conspicuous for the first time, the child did not feel alone in the night. Beyond the garden, the path narrowed once more. winding between trees that seemed older than memory itself. At the very end of the trail, they found it. A tower stood in silence, its stones covered with moss, its windows dark. But inside, through a broken archway, a great clock waited. Unbearable did not move. Its face had no numbers, only circles, endless circles carved in silver. The child stepped closer. What kind of clock is this? The fairy's glow flickered, her voice low and steady. This is the clock of endless hours, she explained. It does not measure minutes or days. It measures how long a heart has carried its feelings. The child tilted her head. But how can a clock know feelings? The fairy floated nearer, pointing at the circles of silver. Every circle is a moment of waiting. Every pause, every sleepless night, every sigh held in the dark. It leaves a mark here. The child stared at the great face of the clock, and slowly faint lights began to appear between the silver circles, like tiny stars scattered across the emptiness. It's beautiful. The fairy's glow softened, her tone carrying both tenderness and sorrow. Sometimes the hours we cannot sleep become the brightest ones, because in those hours we feel the most deeply. The child reached out, gently brushing her fingertips across the silver carvings. The clock responded with a soft hum, as if it recognized her touch. She felt a warmth spread through her chest, an acknowledgement of all the nights she had endured, all the waiting she had survived. "Does it ever stop?" she asked quietly. Civilized Fairy shook her head, wings shimmering faintly. No, because feelings never truly end. They change, they soften, but they remain a part of us. And the clock remembers, so we don't have to carry them alone. Stabilized closed her eyes, listening to the hum, and for the first time she felt proud of her sleeplessness, proud that she had survived the endless hours, proud that her heart had kept glowing through the dark. Maybe my hours aren't wasted after all. The fairy smiled gently, resting on her shoulder, her glow warm against the child's skin. Minimized, no hour lived is ever wasted. Every breath, every tear, every quiet moment beneath the stars is part of your story. The great clock glimmered brighter, filling the tower with soft silver light. Attenuation. It did not tick, it did not move, yet somehow it felt alive, like a companion of the night. Windshield beside the clock of endless hours, the child realized that time, even sleepless time, could be a gift. The silver glow of the clock slowly faded behind them, leaving only the hush of the night to guide their way. The child and the fairy followed the winding path until the sound of water reached their ears. A river shimmered ahead, dark and gentle, carrying the reflections of 1,000 stars across its surface. Stretching over it was a narrow wooden bridge, old, worn, but strangely graceful. The child whispered, "It looks so fragile. Will it hold us?" The fairy's wings flickered faintly as she hovered above the first plank. "This is the bridge of quiet footsteps," she said. "It holds only those who walk with calm hearts. If your thoughts are heavy, it will not carry you." The child hesitated, clutching her hands together, her breath quickening. Each worry inside her rose at once. The nights of restlessness, the fear of never finding peace, the weight of her sleeplessness. "What if I can't do it?" she asked, her voice trembling. The fairy rested softly on her shoulder, her glow warm and steady. "Then breathe," she whispered. "Let the river carry your noise. Let the stars hold your fear. Step only when your heart feels quiet." Gaping, the child closed her eyes, listening to the sound of the river below. With each exhale, the weight on her chest loosened. With each pause, her thoughts slowed, like ripples softening on still water. "Okay, I'm ready." She placed her foot on the first plank. It held. Then another. The bridge did not creak or sway. It simply accepted her steps, light and calm. Step by step, she walked across, her heart in rhythm with the quiet night. And as she did, the bridge began to glow faintly beneath her feet, as though each calm step left behind a trace of starlight. The fairy hovered beside her, wings shimmering like candlelight. "See, the night trusts you," she said softly. "When you walk with stillness, even fragile things become strong." At the center of the bridge, the child paused to gaze down at the water. She saw not just her reflection, but a softer version of herself, a girl unburdened, glowing faintly with the stars above. "I look peaceful." The fairy's smile widened gently, her glow brightening just enough to meet the reflection. "Because you are," she replied. "Every step you take toward calm is a step toward yourself." Bridge faded into memory, and the forest opened wide. Before them stretched a meadow, glowing silver beneath the moonlight. The air shimmered with something soft, almost like a song carried on the wind. "Do you hear that?" the child whispered, her voice trembling with wonder. The fairy's wings flickered gently, her eyes warm. "Yes, this is the meadow of echoed lullabies," she said. "Here the earth remembers every song ever sung to bring comfort. Each note floats until it finds a restless heart." The child stepped into the meadow. The grass swayed around her ankles, brushing her gently like hands guiding her forward. Air thickened with soft melodies, some familiar, some unknown, all tender. "It feels like someone is singing just for me." Her chest loosened as she listened. The songs weren't loud, just threads of sound weaving together, wrapping her in invisible arms. "Close your eyes," the fairy whispered. "Let the meadow sing to you. Let the meadow." Each breath, she felt the lullabies sink deeper, soothing the sharp edges of her sleepless thoughts. The melodies carried words without language, comfort without condition. She whispered, "It's like my mother's voice, even though she isn't here." The fairy's glow brightened gently, shimmering like a candle's flame. "Every loving voice ever sung still lives here," she said softly. "The meadow holds them all, so no child ever feels alone at night." The child laid on the soft grass, the stars above twinkling in rhythm with the lullabies below. Barrett, for the first time, her body felt heavy in a safe way, like it belonged to the earth's embrace. "I could fall asleep here," the earled up beside her, folding her wings softly. "Rest if you wish. Even if dreams do not come, peace will." Mice lullabies swirled around them, gentle as night's own heartbeat. And under the silver sky, in the meadow of echoed lullabies, sleeplessness finally felt like a song meant only for them. The meadow faded behind them, and the path bent toward a place unlike any they had seen before. It was a garden, but instead of flowers, tiny clocks grew from the earth, their faces tilted toward the sky like blossoms of time. Each tick was soft, almost like a heartbeat, blending together into a gentle rhythm that filled the night air. Spoke vines coiled around rusted pocket watches, while glass domes held hourglasses that trickled endless streams of silver sand. Diligently, "What is this place?" the child whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. The fairy hovered close, her glow brushing across the garden's strange blossoms. "This," she said softly, "is the clockmaker's garden. Every restless hour, every sleepless minute, every stolen second grows here. But in this place, time does not chase you. It rests and waits and breathes with you." The child reached out, touching a clock that ticked slower than her own heartbeat. Peacefully, "It's calm." Flushing, and indeed it was. No rush, no urgency, only the soft turning of hands across faces that never hurried. Each sound of ticking felt less like pressure and more like reassurance. Thoughtful. Time, the fairy said, does not always have to be a chain. Sometimes it can be a gentle companion. Defiance. They wandered deeper into the garden. Balloon saw a child a great tree, with pendulums hanging like fruit, swaying in perfect rhythm. It a stone bench waited, worn smooth by countless sleepless souls who had once sat there, finding stillness in the garden's embrace. Fractured the child sat, slowly, her hands brushing the cool stone. Around her, the clocks softened their ticking, aligning with the pace of her breath. It feels like the night is slowing down for me, she said. Beck, the fairy, settled beside her, wings folding gently. Yes, she replied, because sleepless nights are not endless. They only feel that way when time runs too fast. Here, you are allowed to pause. You are allowed to breathe. The child closed her eyes. Tick by tick, the rhythm steadied her heart. Beetle of racing thoughts eased, carried away by the soft harmony of the clocks. I think I'm not. The fairy smiled warmly, her glow flickering like a candle at rest. Then let this place remind you, she said, that even sleepless hours can bloom into something gentle, if you let them. Above them, the pendulums swayed in unison, the whole garden humming with timeless comfort. In that stillness felt endless. It felt like a quiet gift stretched softly across the night. The garden of clocks grew quiet behind them as the path unfolded once more. Through arching trees, a soft glow appeared. Tall windows, etched with silver light, rising out of the earth like a secret temple. It was not a house, not a palace, but something greater. The child stepped closer, her breath catching. A library, she whispered, her eyes widening at the endless shelves visible through the glass. The fairy nodded gently, wings shimmering in reverence. Yes, she said softly, this is the hidden library of night. It appears only to those who wander sleepless, carrying questions too heavy for dreams. The great doors creaked open on their own, and the scent of old pages, ink, and candle wax drifted into the night air. Inside, shelves stretched higher than the stars, filled with books bound in silver, blue, and midnight black. What's inside them? The child asked, reaching for a spine etched with glowing letters. The fairy floated beside her, her glow brushing the words like a lantern flame. Each book, she explained, holds a night someone once lost. Hours of wakefulness, pages of worries, chapters of unspoken prayers, all gathered, remembered, and kept safe here. The child pulled one book gently. When it opened, from the pages, scenes of a boy sitting by a candle, unable to sleep, his heart heavy with longing. The memory shimmered like a story told by the stars. "It's beautiful, but sad," she breathed. The fairy touched the glowing words with one delicate hand. "Even sadness," she said gently, "is a part of the night's story. But here it is safe. It does not have to be carried alone." They wandered deeper, their footsteps echoing softly through the endless halls. Some books hummed softly, some whispered, and others rested in silence. Each seemed alive, breathing with the memories they held. The child pressed one book against her chest, feeling the warmth of its glow seep into her heart. "Do I have a book here too?" she asked, her voice trembling. The fairy smiled, her eyes kind. "Yes," she said softly, "every sleepless soul does. Perhaps one day you will find it, and when you do, you will see your nights not as losses, but as chapters, part of a story that belongs only to you." Nécessaire closed her eyes, breathing in the still air of the library. By countless stories, she no longer felt small. She felt connected, part of something vast and tender. "Maybe sleeplessness is not empty at all," she said. "Maybe it's full of stories." The fairy's glow brightened softly, as if agreeing without words. And there, in the hidden library of night, the child discovered that every restless hour had meaning. Every sleepless night was a page waiting to be read. Phased stretched on, soft and endless, until the path curved toward a silver glow. There, rising from mist, was a bridge arched high above a river of shadowed light. Its stones shimmered faintly as though built from moonlight itself. The child stopped at the edge, her voice caught in her throat. "It's so quiet here," she whispered. "Too quiet." The fairy floated forward, wings glowing gently in the still air. "This," she said softly, "is the bridge of quiet echoes. It does not return sound. Instead, it carries what lies beneath your words, the voice of your heart." The child stepped onto the first stone, and her breath trembled. Voice steps made no noise, only a hush, like the world leaning closer to listen. "It feels like the bridge knows me." The fairy hovered beside her, nodding gently. "It does. Every sleepless wanderer who crosses it leaves behind an echo, not of sound, but of feeling. The bridge remembers even when we do not." The child placed a hand on the railing. A faint warmth pulsed beneath her fingers, like a heartbeat, and then, so soft it was almost nothing, she heard it. Not her own words, but her fears. carried back to her as whispers of calm. You are not alone. You are safe. You are enough. Tears welled in her eyes, but they did not fall. The voices of her worries did not weigh her down. They soothed her, as though the bridge itself was cradling her heart. I didn't know silence could speak, she said. The fairy smiled, her glow steady and kind. Silence always speaks, she replied. We just have to be still enough to listen. They walked together, hand and light, across the bridge. No echoes followed, only the soundless comfort of knowing that the night was listening too. And when they reached the other side, the child's steps felt lighter, as if the quiet itself had carried part of her burden away. The bridge of quiet echoes faded into the mist behind them, leaving only stillness in its place. The forest path widened, and the night unfolded into a meadow bathed in silver light. The grass swayed like an ocean of quiet, and in the air, faint melodies drifted. They were soft, almost hidden, yet carried the tenderness of 1,000 lullabies. The child stopped, eyes wide, her heart trembling with something she couldn't name. Where is that music coming from? The fairy's glow shimmered as she looked across the meadow. This is the meadow of forgotten lullabies, she said gently. Here rest the songs sung once, and then lost to time. They linger, waiting for ears that need them most. The child tilted her head, listening harder. One melody wrapped around her, soft, tender, like hands tucking in a blanket. Another floated close, almost like a hum she faintly remembered from long ago. It feels like they know me. The fairy smiled, wings shimmering softly. Perhaps they do. Forgotten songs don't truly disappear. They wait in the night, carrying the love they were born from. And when someone sleepless wanders near, they find their way back. The child sank into the soft grass, her body easing as the lullabies floated around her like a breeze. The music didn't force her to sleep. It simply made her heart lighter, softer. I can almost hear my mother's voice, she whispered. The fairy sat beside her, glow pulsing gently with each note. That's the gift of these songs, she said. They carry love through the night even when memories fade. I am free, Jobs. I rejected an N5 too, and when I am getting BN2, 9, one lullaby drifted close, slow, tender, filled with warmth. Child hummed along without realizing, her voice weaving into the night's forgotten chorus. I don't feel so alone anymore. The fairy touched her shoulder softly, eyes shining. The songs were always here, waiting to remind you. The meadow swayed, filled with invisible voices singing for them both. Not to lull them into sleep, but to wrap them in belonging. And in that meadow of forgotten lullabies, sleeplessness no longer felt like emptiness. It felt like being held by love that time could not erase. Elizabeth, the forest path widened, and the night unfolded into a meadow bathed in silver light. The grass swayed like an ocean of quiet, and in the air, faint melodies drifted. They were soft, almost hidden, yet carried the tenderness of 1,000 lullabies. The child stopped, eyes wide, her heart trembling with something she couldn't name. Where is that music coming from? The fairy's glow shimmered as she looked across the meadow. "This is the meadow of forgotten lullabies," she said gently. "Here rest the songs sung once, and then lost to time. They linger, waiting for ears that need them most." The child tilted her head, listening harder. Melody wrapped around her, soft, tender, like hands tucking in a blanket. Another floated close, almost like a hum she faintly remembered from long ago. "It feels like they know me." The fairy smiled, wings shimmering softly. "Perhaps they do. Forgotten songs don't truly disappear. They wait in the night, carrying the love they were born from. And when someone sleepless wanders near, they find their way back." Jailed sank into the soft grass, her body easing as the lullabies floated around her like a breeze. The music didn't force her to sleep. It simply made her heart lighter, softer. "I can almost hear my mother's voice," she whispered. The fairy sat beside her, glow pulsing gently with each note. "That's the gift of these songs," she said. "They carry love through the night, even when memories fade." One lullaby drifted close, slow, tender, filled with warmth. Bias hummed along without realizing, her voice weaving into the night's forgotten chorus. "I don't feel so alone anymore." The fairy touched her shoulder softly, eyes shining. "You never were. The songs were always here, waiting to remind you." The meadow swayed, filled with invisible voices singing for them both. Not to lull them into sleep, but to wrap them in belonging. And in that meadow of forgotten lullabies, sleeplessness no longer felt like emptiness. It felt like being held by love that time could not erase. The meadow's music faded as the path curved once more. The child and the fairy walked in silence until the trees opened into a clearing. There, suspended in the air, hung a great clock, its hands glowing faintly, ticking without sound. The child's which she gazed upward. "That is the clock of restless hours," she whispered. "Every sleepless night leaves a mark here. Fall back, a memory of hours spent waiting for peace." The clock's face shimmered, and as the child stared, she saw visions flicker across its glass. Heating herself, lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the silence, citizen by like shadows. "That's me," she breathed. The fairy floated closer, her glow warming the air around them. "Yes," she said gently, "the clock remembers, but it does not judge. These hours you thought were wasted were simply moments of living, moments of longing." Misguided lowered her head, a tear slipping free. "But it feels so heavy, like time is my enemy." The fairy touched her cheek softly, brushing away the tear with a glow. "Time is not against you," she whispered. "Even restless hours carry you forward. They bring you to new dawns, to new hopes. Every tick is a heartbeat of the night itself." The child looked up at the glowing clock again. Slowly she noticed something new. Between the restless hours, there were gentle ones too. Moments of calm, moments of quiet breathing, moments where she wasn't fighting. So even in the waiting, there was peace. The fairy smiled, wings shimmering like silver threads. Yes, the clock does not only count the struggle, it also holds the stillness you may not have seen. The child reached out, as if acknowledging her. The ticking grew softer, slower, until it blended into the rhythm of her own breath. For the first time, the hours didn't feel like something lost. They felt like a path, quiet, patient, always moving forward. And in that moment, beneath the clock of restless hours, she learned that sleepless nights were not her prison, but simply part of her journey. The forest path opened once more, this time revealing an old stone bridge arched over a silent stream. Moss covered its edges, and yet the stones glowed faintly, as though remembering every traveler who had crossed in silence. The child stepped closer, hesitating at the edge. It looked so fragile. What if it breaks? The fairy drifted to her side, her wings brushing against the cool night air. "This bridge was built for quiet hearts," she whispered. "It carries those who walk gently, who trust the night to hold them." The child placed one small foot on the stone. To her surprise, it glowed brighter beneath her step, as if welcoming her weight. She took another, then another. Invoked every footfall, the bridge lit a soft trail of light, like stars awakening under her toes. "It's beautiful." The fairy followed, her glow blending with the stones. "Every step you take in quiet trust becomes lighter," she said. "The bridge teaches you. Not every journey needs noise or haste. Some are meant to be taken slowly, with peace in every breath." Halfway across, the child paused. She looked down into the stream below. The water was perfectly still, so still it reflected her face like a mirror, yet gentler, softer. "That's me, but I look calm." Zapri smiled, resting beside her shoulder. "Because here you are calm," she said. "Erectile, we cannot see it in ourselves until the night shows us." Child took another deep breath, letting the quiet fill her lungs. Her steps grew softer, lighter, until she felt as though she was almost floating. "I don't feel heavy anymore." Communicators, the fairy's wings shimmered like silver threads in the lantern glow of the bridge. That is what the bridge of quiet footsteps gives. relief. It reminds you that you are not carrying your nights alone. Leaning each step is carried by the silence itself. When they finally reached the far end, the bridge glowed one last time, then dimmed, returning to stillness. The child turned back, her eyes soft, her heart unburdened. And in that moment, she realized that even sleepless journeys could feel light if walked with quiet trust. Beyond the bridge, the forest unfolded into a vast hidden garden. Moonlight poured through branches like silver rain, scattering across soft grass and winding paths of stone. But what made this place different was the sound. Every step, every breath, every whisper echoed gently, as though the garden itself was repeating their hearts back to them. "Hello?" the child tried, her voice uncertain. A moment later, the word came back softened. "Hello," like a lullaby carried on air. "It sounds kinder than when I said it." The fairy's glow brightened with a warm smile. "That is the gift of this garden," she explained. "Echoes not the noise of the world, but the truth of your heart, softened by love." Even the child wandered further, and phrasing, the garden was filled with quiet music, an orchestra of echoes playing only for them. "Do you hear it?" she asked. The fairy nodded, wings humming faintly. "Yes, this is how the night speaks back to us. What we release into it returns gentler, calmer, until it teaches us to be gentle too." The child knelt by a pool at the center of the garden. When she whispered into it, just a sigh, a thought, a secret, and the same whisper rose back, not heavy, not sharp, but soft as silk. "I'm not alone." Garden answered in kind, "Not alone." The child sat by her, beside her, eyes glimmering like dew. Together they listened as the echoes wrapped around them, a gentle chorus of peace. "Every echo here," thoughtful the fairy said, "is a reminder that the night does not return harshness. It returns kindness, if that is what you offer." The child leaned against her, feeling lighter, safer than ever before, and for a moment she wished the night could last forever.
I think the garden is teaching me how to be gentle with myself.
The fairy's glow softened, matching the rhythm of the echoes. "Yes," she whispered, "that is the truest lesson of sleeplessness. In the quiet you learn to hear your own heart and love it enough to rest." The garden shimmered, every flower bowing, every echo fading softly into silence. Vocational finally felt the silence not as emptiness, but as a lullaby of the night. The path from the echoing garden led them to a quiet hill. At the very top, surrounded by stone pillars, stood a great clock, ancient, tall, and unmoving. Its hands were still, yet it gave off a steady hum, like a heartbeat of the night itself. It's not ticking, whispered the child, whispered. The fairy floated closer, her glow brushing against the clock's face. This is no ordinary clock, she said gently. It does not measure minutes or hours. It counts the silence we allow ourselves to feel. The child titled her head, listening, stabilized them. The night was utterly quiet. No leaves rustled, no birds stirred, only stillness. And then the clock hands moved, just a little, just enough to mark that silence had passed. It's alive. The fairy smiled softly. Yes, each pause, each breath, each moment you allow yourself to simply be adds to the clock's silent hours. I never realized silence has a rhythm too. The fairy's glow pulsed like a nod. Silence is the music that holds everything together. Even in sleepless nights, it keeps us steady. The clock's hands shifted once more, marking another stretch of calm. Diabetes time, the child felt no rush, no urgency. Clarified, he let the moment be whole, complete in itself. Then maybe sleepless nights aren't wasted at all. The fairy rested beside her, wings folding close. They are not wasted, she said gently. They are hours that belong to silence, and silence too is a kind of rest. The clommed softly, as if agreeing. Annoyance beneath the starlit hill, child and fairy sat in stillness, gifting the night yet another silent hour. The hill sloped down into a valley where a silver bridge arched across the mist. It gleamed as if woven from moonlight, each strand humming softly in the night air. Below, a quiet river flowed, not fast, not loud, but steady, carrying the weight of time itself. It looks endless, the child whispered, her voice trembling with wonder. The fairy floated to the edge, her glow lighting the first few steps. This is the bridge of quiet tomorrows, she said. Each step you take across it carries you into a gentler day. The child hesitated, toes curling on the glowing path. What if she stumbled? What if the bridge vanished beneath her? But the fairy's soft hand brushed against hers, warm, steady, guiding. You don't have to rush, the fairy whispered. Abandonment at a time is enough. Child breathed in, then out, and placed her foot on the bridge. Monkey-like threads rippled gently but held her weight. Her fear eased, replaced by quiet awe. As they walked on either side, the child could see shadows of tomorrows yet to come, mornings filled with calm, evenings softened by stillness, nights where rest felt possible. Are these my days? Financed the fairy nodded gently. Yes, they are waiting for you. Recognize sleepless nights cannot steal them. Arrives quietly, patiently. The child's chest loosened as hope flickered inside her. She could see herself laughing, breathing, resting, not perfectly, but fully. The bridge shimmered brighter with every heartbeat of courage she found. Roofing leaved. So, sleeplessness isn't forever, she said, almost in relief. Defiance, the fairy smiled, glowed like a star. No night lasts forever. Every bridge leads us forward, long-standing, and every tomorrow waits with open arms. The ridge's smile killed him. Step by step, they crossed together, the river humming beneath them. And as the bridge carried them closer to the far side, the child realized something new. She no longer feared the night, for tomorrow was already shining within it. A ratashich of quiet tomorrows had taught her, sleeplessness is not an ending, it is only a pause before the gentle dawn. The bradding faded into mist, and soon a garden unfolded before them. It wasn't like any garden the child had ever seen. No fences, no walls, no paths. Just endless blossoms glowing in silver hues, swaying with the rhythm of the night breeze. What is this place? The child whispered, her voice trembling with awe. The fairy's glow softened, almost reverent. This is the garden of unspoken prayers, she said. Very flower here blooms from the words the heart was too quiet to speak. The wishes whispered only inside, never aloud. Allocate's child stepped carefully into the garden. A soft petal brushed against her hand, and in that touch she felt an old memory. The nights she had hoped for peace, the mornings she wished for rest. These are mine? Elias nodded gently. Some are yours, some belong to others. But every silent prayer is heard here, every longing given a place to rest. The child wandered deeper. Abbreviated, one flower pulsed faintly, its glow unsteady. She knelt beside it, and as her fingers brushed its stem, she felt the ache of all the nights yet hidden her tears. "It's so fragile," she whispered. The fairy floated down beside her. Fragile, but alive. Even the smallest prayer grows when it's carried with patience. The child closed her eyes. She didn't speak, didn't force words into the air. She simply let her heart exhale, softly, silently. And in response, a new bud began to bloom at her side, glowing with quiet light. I didn't even say it out loud. The fairy smiled, her wings shimmering faintly. You didn't need to. The heart's whispers are enough. Here, even silence finds a voice. Together they sat among the glowing blossoms. The child felt the stillness wrap around her, not heavy but comforting, like an embrace she had long awaited. It feels like the night understands me, she said quietly. The fairy rested her tiny hand over the child's. That is the gift of this garden. It reminds us that even when no one hears our words, the night itself carries them, and keeps them safe. A gentle breeze swept through the flowers, and for the first time the child's heart felt lighter, not because she was no longer sleepless, but because she knew her quiet hopes were alive, blooming in the garden forever. The garden of unspoken prayers had taught her silence, too, has its own language of faith. Their journey carried them beyond the glowing garden until the ground began to rise beneath their feet. Stone by stone, step by step, a mountain emerged. Tall, ancient, and dressed in silver mist. The child looked up at its towering height, her heart quickening with both awe and unease. "It looks so high," she whispered. "What if I can't climb it?" The fairy floated beside her, glowing steady like a lantern in the dark. "You don't have to climb it fast," she said kindly. "This mountain listens to every step, no matter how small, and it answers gently." They began their ascent. The child's shoes pressed against cool stone, and with each footfall she heard a faint sound, her own breath echoing back to her, soft as a lullaby. "It's my voice," she gasped. The fairy smiled, wings shimmering in the thin mountain air. "Yes, this mountain carries what you release, but it never shouts. It only returns your truth in a gentler way." The child tried again, breathing out a shaky sigh. The sound rose, traveled across the stones, and came back to her, not heavy, not sharp, but softened, like a hand stroking her hair. "It makes my fear smaller," she said quietly. The fairy nodded, her glow warm. "That's what this place is for, to show us that even the hardest feelings can return, softer, gentler, kinder." They climbed higher, the air growing stiller, until they reached a ledge overlooking the valley below. Stars stretched endlessly across the horizon, and the world seemed to hold its breath with them. The child cupped her hands around her mouth and whispered into the night, "I am tired, but I am still here." The mountain caught her words, carried them through stone and sky, and returned them wrapped in calm. "Still here, still here, still here, practition." Tears welled in the child's eyes, but they were no longer heavy. They were light, like rain that nourishes the soil. "It feels like the mountain understands me," she whispered. The fairy rested on her shoulder, glowing faintly. "Sometimes we only need our own voice returned to us, not as an echo of pain, but as a reminder of strength." They stayed a while longer, listening to their whispers melt into the mountain's heart. And in that stillness, the sleepless child realized, Moot, her truth was enough to be carried, softened, and safe. And for the first time, the night itself felt like a friend. The path curved downward, and soon the mountain gave way to a valley of still water, Spread before them was a lake, calm, glass-like, untouched by even the wind. It mirrored the night sky so perfectly that it was hard to tell where the stars ended and the water began. And the child stopped at the edge, gazing wide-eyed at the silent expanse. It feels like the whole world is inside this lake, she whispered. The fairy hovered close, her glow brushing the surface, ripples across the reflection of the moon. This is the lake of quiet reflections, she explained. Repaint shows more than faces. It shows what the heart carries, how it longs to be seen. The child knelt, leaning over the edge. Her reflection stared back, eyes tired yet shimmering with something unspoken. But as the water stirred, both she saw not just herself, but the weight she carried. Nights of worry, moments of fear, the ache of being sleepless and alone. It's showing me everything I hide, she murmured. The fairy floated nearer, her voice steady and gentle. Yes, but look closer. Reflection doesn't come to shame you. It comes to remind you. You have survived all that you see. The child's reflection shifted. She saw herself standing tall, her breath steady, her hands unclenched and open. The water shimmered, holding both her pain and her strength together, as if they had always belonged to the same story. I look braver than I feel, she whispered. The fairy's glow warmed the water like a lantern under the stars. That's because bravery isn't always loud. Bracelets, sometimes, it's simply staying awake in the night and still daring to hope. The child dipped her fingertips into the water. Ripples spread, carrying her reflection outward. Erotiches themselves seemed to shimmer with her touch. It feels like the lake is holding me, the fairy smiled, her wings folding softly. It is. Every reflection is a reminder that you are seen by the night, by the world, and most of all, by yourself. The child sat back on the grass, her heart lighter than it had been in so long. For the first time, she didn't fear what her reflection would show, abbreviated it, because her pain and her courage, side by side, like stars on water. And so, at the lake of quiet reflections, discovered that even in sleepless nights was never unseen. The path carried them further, until the forest opened into a hidden grove. Here, the air itself felt alive, soft hums drifting like petals, melodies floating as though the wind was singing. The child stepped forward, her eyes wide. All around her, flowers glowed faintly, each one releasing a faint tune. Muzzled, the petals carried lullabies long forgotten. Where are these songs coming from? She whispered. The fairy hovered over a blossom. its petals trembling like a tiny harp string. "This is the garden of forgotten lullabies," she explained. "Every song once sung to soothe a restless heart finds its way here when it is no longer remembered." The child bent low, listening. A flower near her hummed a tender tune, not with words, but with warmth, Palestinians of comfort wrapped in quiet notes. "It feels like someone is singing just for me." The fairy smiled, her wings stirring the air like soft chimes. "That's the magic of lullabies. Even when forgotten by the world, bravery still remember the ones they were meant to hold." The child wandered deeper, touching blossoms gently. Each flower released a different melody, some bright and hopeful, others tender and aching, ballistic, unthinkable. "It's like every song is a hug," she whispered, "like the night is rocking me to sleep." Therese floated beside her, blindness shining with the reflection of the glowing petals. "Sometimes we forget the words, but the feeling remains. Lullabies live not in memory, but in the heart." The child closed her eyes, breathing slow. Vigorously melodies wrapped around her, airborne her to sleep, but simply holding her where she was. "I think I could stay here forever," she murmured. The fairy lowered her glow on a petal that hummed with a soft tune. "And even if you leave," she said gently, "the songs will travel with you, because the heart never truly forgets of being loved." The night deepened, but in the garden of forgotten lullabies, weakenless felt like a cradle, a sister felt like a song. And so the child learned, sometimes peace isn't found in silence alone, but in the soft music of love that never fades. The path curved, leading them to a quiet river where an old stone bridge stretched across the water. The night sky mirrored itself on the surface, Mat-tu-Saka, so perfectly that it felt like walking between two worlds. A zip code placed her foot on the bridge, which figures, and instantly her last sigh echoed softly, with Abel Dur repeating back not once, but twice, "There is each time gentler than before." "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her eyes wide. The fairy hovered close, her glow brushing the stones. "This is the bridge of gentle echoes," she said. "It doesn't return noise. It returns what lies beneath the noise." The child leaned closer to the railing and whispered, her voice trembling like a secret, "I'm afraid of never sleeping." The bridge answered, the words returning softer, "Never sleeping." And then again, even gentler, "Sleeping." The child's shoulders eased, as though the bridge was peeling away the fear, and leaving only truth behind. "It doesn't make fun of me," she said softly. "It makes my fear sound smaller." The fairy touched the stone, her glow seeping faintly into the cracks like moonlight water. "That's its gift," she said. "The bridge teaches us that our heaviest thoughts, when spoken, lose their weight as they return to us." The child inhaled deeply, then whispered again, this time with hope. "Maybe I'll find rest one day." The bridge echoed back, tender and faithful. "Find one day." The child closed her eyes, smiling faintly. "It feels like the night is answering me," she murmured. The fairy floated higher, wings glowing against the stars. "Because it is," she said. "The night doesn't silence us. It carries us back to ourselves." Together they walked across, each step releasing a soft sound that returned lighter, like burdens dissolving into music. By the time they reached the far side, Melia's such heart felt quieter, not because the echoes erased her fears, but because they showed her she was never truly alone in them. And so, on the bridge of gentle echoes, smacky blissness no longer felt endless, simultaneous, heard. Bowling being the bridge, the air grew cool, carrying the soft scent of wet earth yet to be touched by rain. Photographic rippled, dark clouds gathering like gentle curtains, flushing, pulling themselves across the stars. And then the first drop fell. It touched the child's cheek, warm, delicate, and rolled down like a tiny blessing. "Rain," she whispered, her voice full of wonder as she tilted her face upward. The fairy hovered close, her glow shimmering against the droplets that began to scatter across the leaves, tapping out a rhythm older than time. "This is the veil of midnight rain," she said softly. "It falls when the night wishes to wash sorrow into the soil, you leaving space for gentler things to grow." The child stretched out her hands. The raindrops patter against her palms. Each drop felt cool and alive, oxygen as if carrying away one heavy thought at a time. "It feels like the sky is crying with me," she murmured. The fairy's wings fluttered slowly, abandonment glistening like diamonds along their edges. "Sometimes," she said, "so we don't have to cry alone." Alliances deepened, falling steady now, but not harsh, soft, steady, rhythmic. The world shimmered, blurred, cleansed. The child closed her eyes. Tepra Lord, long patter on her hair and shoulders, weaving terrible into the sound of a lullaby she had never heard before. How always known. I don't feel heavy anymore, she whispered. It's like the rain is carrying the weight for me. The fairy nodded gently, resting on her shoulder, her glow dimmed to match the softness of the storm. That is the gift of midnight rain, she said. It reminds us that even sleepless nights can be a place of release, not just restlessness. The child sat upon the damp grass, rain glistening on her cheeks like starlight tears. But for the first time, they weren't tears of sorrow. Springfield of cleansing, of quiet relief. I think the night is healing me, she breathed. The fairy smiled softly, folding her wings and leaning into the child's warmth. And together, under the veil of midnight rain, they let go of what no longer needed to be carried, making room for stillness, Vulcanness, for hope. The rain faded into gentle drizzles, leaving the forest hushed and glistening. Each branch shimmered with drops, as though the stars themselves had fallen into the trees. The child and fairy walked quietly. Martinez, their steps softened by wet grass. They came upon an open stone clearing. In the center stood a clock, Weiss, ancient, carved of dark wood, its face glowing faintly in the night. But it was different from any clock the child had ever seen. The hands moved, yet no ticking could be heard. It's silent, she whispered, a shiver of wonder passing through her voice. The fairy floated closer, her wings catching the faint glow of the clock's face. This, she said softly, is the clock of silent hours. Doesn't count the minutes we lose, abbreviated, but the moments we truly feel. The child tilted her head, watching the hands glide soundlessly. With every sweep, she felt time not as a race, as a gentle river flowing, unhurried, unbroken. It feels endless, she murmured, like the night isn't slipping away from me anymore. The fairy smiled faintly, her voice a soft hum. Because sometimes silence holds time better than sound. The quiet hours aren't wasted. They're here to be lived gently, breath by breath. The chapped closer, placing her small hand against the clock's smooth wood. It pulsed warmly beneath her touch, not a heartbeat, not a tick, but a steady calm that filled her chest. I don't feel chased anymore, she whispered. I feel held. The fairy's glow deepened, as if in harmony with the clock itself. Then you've learned its secret, she said gently. Time doesn't always measure what passes. Sometimes it measures what stays. The clock's hands glided onward, not rushing toward dawn, not pulling the night away, and into the gaze of the clock of silent hours, the child and fairy discovered that sleeplessness could hold its own kind of timeless grace. The forest path curved once more as the air grew sweeter, stimulates a fragrance unlike anything the child had ever known. It was gentle, like rain mixed with sunlight, and as she breathed it in, her chest loosened, but her heart softening with every step. Then they saw it, crippling, blooming in the middle of the night. Flowers of every shape and shade swayed softly, winging faintly as though made of moonlight itself. "It's beautiful," the child whispered, eyes wide, her voice trembling with awe. The fairy floated ahead, her glow blending with the blossoms. "This," she said gently, "garden of unspoken wishes. Every flower here is born from a hope that was never spoken aloud, a dream kept safe in silence." The child knelt down beside a cluster of soft silver petals. As she leaned closer, the flower pulsed, and in her mind she felt a whisper, a wish she had once carried, to never feel alone in the dark. "It remembers me," she breathed, sapling. The fairy nodded, her wings folding gently, easing. "Unspoken wishes never vanish," she murmured. "They live here, quietly, waiting to remind us that even silence holds prayers of the heart." As the child walked deeper into the garden, the flowers glowed brighter with every step. Some shimmered with joy, others with longing, but all of them breathed with gentle patience. "It feels like they're listening," she whispered. The fairy floated closer, her glow calm and steady. "Because they are," she said. "Every wish left unspoken is still carried, still cherished by the night." So the child lowered herself onto the grass, Mabini surrounded by glowing blossoms, Mobi's breathing deeply, and for the first time, she let her silence speak for her heart. I never needed to say it out loud. Stabilize. It was heard. The fairy smiled warmly, her wings shimmering in harmony with the flowers. The night hears what words cannot hold, she whispered back, and so do I. And there, in the garden of unspoken wishes, the sleepless child discovered a truth she had never known, that silence itself can carry the weight of hope and return it as light. The garden faded behind them, yet the glow of its flowers lingered in the child's heart. As they walked further, the forest grew thinner, until the sky opened wide above them, endless, star-filled, waiting. And then she saw it, a stairway of stars, each one shimmering gently, rising higher and higher into the heavens. "Is that real?" the child whispered, her voice trembling with wonder. The fairy hovered beside her, her wings glowing like a small constellation of their own. "Some paths," she said softly, "exist only for those who cannot sleep. The stairway of quiet stars rises when hearts are heavy and in need of light." The child reached out, her foot touching the first step of starlight. To her surprise, it held her weight. Soft, steady, as though the sky itself wished to carry her. "It feels alive," she breathed. The fairy nodded, her voice hushed, because each star here was once a sigh. Mum, mum, a prayer, a quiet breath, released into the night by someone wide awake. Step by step, the child began to climb. With every star she touched, in her thoughts dimmed further, replaced by a calm she had never known. "It feels lighter up here," she whispered, as the world below grew small. The fairy flew beside her, her wings brushing gently against the starlight. "The higher you go," she said, "the less the worries of the earth can reach you. Up here, only stillness remains." Step, while paused halfway, administered together on a glowing step of light. Unpredictable endlessly around them, and for the first time the child felt as though she was part of the stars themselves. "It's so quiet, and yet I don't feel alone." The fairy's eyes softened, reflecting the galaxies. "That is the gift of the stairway," she murmured. "Silence that comforts rather than silence that hurts." Ter they sat, discredited by the hush of 1,000 stars. Night no longer weighed heavy. It lifted, it became vast and kind, and in that moment understood that sleeplessness could also be a way of reaching the heavens. The stairway faded behind them, and the night carried them gently to a valley wrapped in quiet mist. At its center lay a still, glowing lake, smooth as glass, endless as the sky. The child stepped closer, her breath catching, as she saw her reflection in the water. But it was not her face staring back. It was her heart. "What is this place?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The fairy floated to her side, her glow touching the lake with a ripple of light. "This," she said gently, "is the mirror of gentle truths. It does not show who you appear to be. It shows who you truly are, beneath the noise, beneath sleepless thoughts." The child knelt, gazing deeper. Shimmering in the water, the nights of loneliness, misuse she carried silently, the ache of feeling unseen. "That's me," she breathed, bracelets her eyes filling with tears. The fairy touched her shoulder, her voice calm, "But look again. For the mirror shows not only pain, it shows the strength that carried you through it." The ripples shifted. Now she saw moments of quiet courage. The nights she whispered prayers into the dark, times she reached out for comfort. gentle light she had given to others, even in her own tiredness. I I didn't know that was part of me, she whispered, awe softening her tears. The fairy smiled, her glow reflecting brighter in the water. Every sleepless heart holds truths often hidden by the noise of worry. But here, nothing can hide. The last of Basque is from the lass of Gestress and Siowaz of Trigger. The child touched the water, and instead of rippling away, the Aim's surface glowed warmly beneath her hand, as though accepting her wholly. I'm not broken, she realized. The fairy's voice softened further, carrying like a lullaby through the mist. No, you are whole, even in sleepless nights, even in restless thoughts. Your truth remains gentle, and your light remains real. Some they sat, watching the ripples, desiring the next, following the second final, getting to Slace of Provem. The valley gasped softly. The bridge shimmered not made of stone or wood, but of light, light that pulsed gently, as if alive with breath. What is it? She whispered, her voice trembling with awe. The fairy hovered close, her wings reflecting the glow. This is the bridge of dawnlight, she said. It appears only to those who have walked through the sleepless night with courage. It is the path between what was and what can be. The child's eyes glistened as she stepped forward. Each footfall touched the golden threads, sending ripples of soft light ahead of her. With every step, her chest grew lighter, her breath steadier. It feels safe, she said. The fairy smiled, flying at her side, hobbled her glow harmonizing with the bridge's rhythm. That is because it carries not your fears, but your hopes. Every step you take here, ancest is a promise to yourself that dawn is coming. Beneath them, the darkness of night shimmered like a sea. Above them, faint colors of morning began to bloom, tender hues of rose and gold brushing against the sky. The child paused halfway across, gazing at the horizon. All this time, finally I was walking alone in the dark, she whispered. But the night was leading me here. The fairy nodded, her voice calm, tender, steady. Yes, the night is not the end of the path. It is the bridge that carries you into the morning. The child closed her eyes, letting the soft light of the bridge wrap around her like an embrace. For the first time, she felt the promise of dawn not as something far away, but as something already within her. I'm ready, she said. The fairy smiled, her wings glowing brighter with hope. Then walk with me, she said gently, for together we will meet the first light of morning. And hand in hand, the child and the sleepless fairy walked across the bridge of dawnlight, each step carrying them closer to a sky painted with promise. The night was ending, noticeably, would stay with them forever. The bridge of dawnlight ended, and before them stretched the horizon, wide, endless, glowing. Golden light spilled over hills, rivers, and trees, embarrassment the world in gentle warmth. The child stepped forward, feeling the sun's first rays brush her face, closed her eyes, letting the warmth sink into her skin, into her bones, into her heart. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice soft, full of awe and relief. The fairy hovered beside her, her glow softening in harmony with the morning light. "The horizon embraces all who have walked through the night," she said gently. "It holds every sleepless thought, every quiet tear, and turns them into a new beginning." The child opened her eyes fully, watching the light stretch across the valleys, shimmering over rivers like liquid gold. Felt a calm she had never known, a sense that everything was finally as it should be. The night, it was leading me here, she breathed. The fairy smiled, resting her tiny hands on the child's shoulder. "Yes," she murmured, "every sleepless hour, every quiet worry, every fear unspoken, resemble to this place, and now the horizon holds you." The child looked out at the vast sky, the rivers reflecting light like mirrors, and she felt a warmth spreading from her chest to every corner of her being. "I feel whole," she whispered, "not just awake, but alive." The fairy nodded, her glow shimmering with quiet pride. "The night gave you its lessons. The horizon returns them as grace. Sleeplessness is no longer a burden, but a journey that brought you home." And feel, Toulouser they walked along the horizon's edge, feeling the light wrap around them like an embrace, and feel sleepless night was behind them. Yet its gifts would remain. Fragmented courage, stillness, understanding, and hope. And in that wide golden embrace, combating and fairy knew every sleepless night, every whispered fear had led them to the dawn of something eternal. The horizon glowed behind them, soft and endless, painting the sky in gentle golds and pinks. The child and the fairy stood together, feeling the calm linger from the journey behind them. Then, in the midst of the dawn, a small floating light appeared before them, glimmered softly, warm, steady, eternal. "What is this?" the child whispered, her voice hushed with awe. The fairy hovered closer, her glow intertwining with the light. "This," she murmured gently, "is the eternal night light. It carries all the sleepless nights, whispers the fears, and transforms them into a constant quiet glow that will always be with you. The child reached out and touched the light. Instead of flickering away, it expanded softly, embracing her hand, her chest, filling every corner of her being with warmth. It feels like home, she breathed. The fairy smiled, a gentle shimmer surrounding her. Because it is, she said. Every sleepless night you endured, every quiet thought you carried, part of this light. It is your courage, your stillness, your heart, eternal. The child closed her eyes, letting the glow wash over her. Memories of forests, lanterns, rivers, stairs, mirrors, and bridges flowed softly through her mind, each one a whisper of lessons learned and fears faced. I understand now, she whispered. The night wasn't my enemy. It was my guide. The fairy nodded, wings fluttering gently in the golden light. And now it can guide others too. Logistical, this light that never fades. Sleeplessness may return, but it will never feel empty again. The fairy seems of a pulsing softly like a heartbeat. I'll carry this forever, she murmured. And so, she whispered, the sleepless night becomes a friend, contentious, the journey of memory, embraces the heart, a sanctuary of light. As the morning expanded into full day, the child and the fairy stood together, casting a calm glow that could never be forgotten. In that eternal glow, every sleepless night, every whispered fear, and every quiet hope became a story of courage, a story to carry forever. The as de Prive, the fairy, and of eyes. And so the journey came to end. Sleep well, and good night, dear dreamer.